Cool. Good afternoon, Norman. Thanks for joining us.
Coming up, the meteorology school will have a new home soon.
And the time is here for students to start looking for summer internships.
Chance of showers today, but we have a nice week headed for you. Your full forecast in a minute.
The Norman High School soccer team was in action this weekend. We'll have that and a recap of their season.
News, weather, and sports.
All headed your way right now on Norman Today. Hi, welcome to Norman Today. I'm Zane Watson.
And I'm Valerie Perrin. The new high school in Norman Public Schools claims the Teacher of the Year. Norman North teacher Claudia Swisher is the 1998 District Teacher of the Year. Swisher received the honor Friday night during the district's Celebration of Teaching banquet. Norman North is Swisher's fourth school in the district. She's also worked at Eisenhower Elementary, West Mid-High, and Central Mid-High schools. Swisher received more than $2,000 in cash and gift certificates. A regular meeting of the Board of Education of Independent School District Number 29 of Cleveland County will be held today. The meeting will begin at 7 o'clock tonight at the Administrative Services Center located at 131 South Flood Avenue in Norman. The board will be considering and act upon certain awards to be given out, public communications, disposition of routine business, and other yearly unfinished business.
Norman citizens are celebrating the 109th anniversary of the land run in 1889. Saturday will be the annual 89er Days and Great American West Celebration Parade through the downtown area to be held at Abe Andrews Parks. Events will continue through today. And 5 outstanding Norman citizens were honored by the United Way and Junior League of Norman at the annual Volunteer of the Year luncheon. The 5 volunteers were selected as this year's 5 Points of Light. They included Sally Groves, Dick Reynolds, Margie Richardson, Debbie Burns, and Teresa Harwell. Their accomplishments range from civic service to youth education.
Changes in the near future. Kyle Beatty has more.
In the process of planning its biggest construction project ever. It will involve the joint effort between OU and the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, and will group 9 weather agencies into one building on campus.
We're in the first phase of the planning step of getting a new building in place. But our main concern was co-locating with the University of Oklahoma and building some synergy there.
The new building is estimated to cost $90 million. That is more than is currently being spent on the construction of the Museum of Natural History, and will be funded half by OU and half by the federal government.
There's a lot of places around the Energy Center or around campus where a new building could be located, and no decision has been made on where that is to be.
Not only are faculty excited about the consolidation project, but students also believe it will be a great opportunity to learn.
Great opportunity to work with people who are in the field doing research, get a chance to look over their shoulder if you want to. A lot easier to do that instead of running up there now. If we're in the same building, we can just run next door and say, hey, do you mind if I take a look at what you're doing?
The project is still in the planning stage, but construction will hopefully begin by the year 2000, and the project will hopefully be completed by 2003. Kyle Beatty, Norman Today.
Congress has just allocated $700,000 for planning the project, and OU President David Boren is currently working to raise the first $15 million. A new website is scheduled to debut on May 10th. Jim Benson, owner of J. Bodie's Food Stores, is developing Norman Now. The website will provide a listing of Norman businesses along with news, weather, and sports, commercial and residential real estate, and a wide variety of civic information. Among other details, Norman Now will present information for visitors and new residents.
Luke Cannon has announced that he plans to seek the Republican nomination for District 3 Cleveland County Commissioner. Cannon has been a Norman resident since 1963. As County Commissioner, Cannon plans to create an atmosphere that will be receptive to the suggestions of District 3 residents. And a Cleveland County jury decided in favor of a Norman heart surgeon last week. A civil trial was held in which an 18-year-old patient has claimed negligence on both the part of the hospital and the doctor. Jurors deliberated about an hour and a half before returning a decision. They favored the defendants Kyle Toll, MD, and the City of Norman and Norman Regional Hospital Authority. Plaintiff Sarah J. Franklin was seeking damages in the case stemming from heart surgery performed upon her on February 5, 1996.
Whether you're graduating or not this May, one thing all University of Oklahoma students will be looking for is a job. Norman Today's Rachel Haitley reports on how to find a job without even leaving campus.
Summer is quickly approaching, and this means University of Oklahoma students are looking for employment. Many students want to find internships that will be beneficial to their majors. Betty Scott at OU's Career Service Center helps students every day with resume and interview techniques to prepare them for the future.
Our main function, as I see it, and my main function is to help students prepare themselves for the interview process, the job search process.
Scott says it's still not too late for students to apply for summer internships. She says companies are continually putting out ads for interns, and students should take it upon themselves to apply.
So just because we're getting out of school doesn't mean all the internships are gone. So it's not too late to start.
I came in and got some information about the companies and went through and interviewed, and it was really helpful, and so now I have a job for the summer.
The Career Services Center is located on the 3rd floor of the Oklahoma Memorial Union and is open weekdays 8 to 5 for student assistance. Rachel Haitley, Norman Today.
Students can either walk into Career Services or call ahead to make an appointment to see a counselor.
Right now, David Keller is in the in the Weather Center right now preparing his forecast. David, are we going to see a little more sun this afternoon than this morning?
Today, we might not see the sun, but as for the rest of the week, there's a big H on the weather map that's going to give us a beautiful week. Your full forecast and your weather quiz after this break.
When the heavens thunder, when the nation calls, you can make a difference and be a part of it all. You're able to pay the price, you can. Willing to sacrifice, you can. Adventure, helping, service. In the Army National Guard, you can.
Find yourself in the Army National Guard, serving 1 weekend a month and 2 weeks a year, and you'll find an extra paycheck, money for college, and all the adventure you can handle. It's a great way to serve your country and community. Call 1-800-GO-GUARD.
If you're ready to pass the test, you can. An American at your best, you can. Adventure, helping, service. In the Army National Guard. In the Army National Guard, you can.
It's only a little motor oil.
What difference is one drop of paint going to make?
This much fertilizer isn't going to pollute anything.
You're looking at a sea of excuses, created drop by people like you and me. Our waters can be saved if each of us does their part. Drop by drop. If we all do a little, we can do a lot. Brought to you by the Natural Resources Defense Council, the EPA, and the Ad Councils of the U.S. and Japan.
My son Daku was riding a motorcycle when he was struck by a car. I had spoken to him previously about donating his organs, and it made it so much easier for me to make the decision. I knew that this is something that he wanted. I didn't have to feel guilty about making the decision, doing something that he may not have wanted. Every day I tell people, talk it over. You must let people know what you want.
And David Keller joins us now, and I hope it doesn't rain today, Dave, because I did not bring my umbrella, so what can you do about that?
I can't really do anything about that. We are going to get a little shower, but towards the middle of the week it's going to warm up rather nicely, and I figure you guys are doing well with the quizzes, so I'm going to have to give you some thermodynamic questions today. So for today, we'll say, ask you which air would weigh the least here. Now, I know what you're thinking. Now, is this the same pressure, same amount of air? Well, all the same pressure, same amount. But if you have 32 degrees, 25% relative humidity, 85, 90% relative humidity, 90 degrees and dry, or 50 and 50. So you can think about that one. But outside right now, our camera looks to the west, and there are clouds to the west. The storm's coming in. Cold front, actually. It's going to cool us down, give us a little shower. It's not that strong of a system, so it's not going to cool us off too much. By the end of the week, we'll warm up into the 80s. Currently outside, 54 degrees, 47% relative humidity. Pressure's a little on the high side, 30.20 inches, and the winds have shifted around to the north at 14 miles an hour. Yesterday, believe it or not, we were below normal. It felt kind of warm yesterday. The sun's starting to get a little higher in the atmosphere, so it feels a little warmer when you're outside and it's clear skies. But 73 and 50 are our average. We were at 70 and 45 yesterday. 91, 33 are our records. Right now, here's a little low pressure system moving its way up. Cool air behind it up here in the coast is going to make its way down. It's not going to cool us off too much. Fairly weak system. The strong system has pushed its way off, and they're under high pressure on the east coast. They had a lot of severe weather last week. Here's the big high pressure system that's going to dominate our weather towards the middle and end of the week. It's going to bring in some warm air, clockwise winds around that warm air as it moves to the east and down over the Missouri area. Now, satellite shows that here's this sort of, you can see it's what we call a comma cloud pattern. Band of showers and cool air behind it, high pressure. There's no clouds behind it. It's going to make its way, push its way off to the east, bring in some little cooler air. But as for our temperatures across the nation, we'll be in the 60s today, 70s just at the lower tip of the Oklahoma. 50s is going to make its way. We're not going to get into the 50s tomorrow. We'll just be in the 60s tomorrow. But as you can see up here, it's starting to make the winds are actually bringing some warm air up along the west coast, and that's what's going to happen as this high makes its way across and over. It's going to bring in a lot of that warmer air down in Texas and western Oklahoma. It's going to warm up to the 80s. So for Oklahoma today, 69 degrees. We're not going to make it to 70 degrees. However, down to our south, they'll be at 70. Ardmore 71, McAllister at 73. For lows tonight and tomorrow, we'll get down to 45 degrees. 30 up to our north and 35 in Guyman. So for Norman, your forecast today, clouds, wind, and a possible shower, 69 degrees. Winds will be shifting north. They've already shifted. For tonight and into tomorrow morning, we'll get down to about 45 degrees, partly cloudy and cooler. For the rest of the week, what can we expect? We can expect temperatures 68 tomorrow, 71 on Wednesday, and Thursday and Friday will warm up. Friday into the 80s. Saturday, chance of rain, 75 degrees. What do you guys think?
We agreed that C would be the most logical answer.
Well, that's what a lot of people think, but the answer today is B.
You stumped us.
Huh.
What
That's the first one we haven't gotten right.
Moist air actually weighs less, and that's what causes a lot of thunderstorms. You have dry air under moist air. So.
Well, we're not meteorology majors.
Thanks, Dave.
All right.
Coming up next on Norman Today.
The OU baseball team traveled to Nebraska in Big 12 action. Andy Gibson has the story next.
Stay with us.
Hands need hands to help you see what lies ahead, what you want to be. Hands need hands, a hand to reach.
Keep kids today need extra help to stay in school. Communities in Schools brings hands in need together with hands that can help.
Get ready!
Adventure training in the Army National Guard. When we move fast. When we train hard. If you're up to the challenge, we'll make it worth your while. Call 1-800-GO-GUARD.
Thank you, Amanda.
Now Andy Gibson is joining us with sports. So it was a big weekend for Sooner softball.
Yeah, they dedicated the softball complex, but we'll get back to that a little bit later. The OU baseball team is on a new kind of streak, and it's not a good one. The Sooners were swept in a 3-game series over the weekend by the Nebraska Cornhuskers. In Sunday's 13-12 win, the Huskers scored 10 runs in the bottom of the 7th. OU dropped to 29-12 overall and 9-7 in the Big 12 Conference. The first ever meeting between the Norman and Norman North baseball teams wasn't a very close one. The score was tied after 1 inning, but the Timberwolves would go flat after that. The Tigers would get home runs from Jeremy Foster and Mike Callaghan in the 12-4 victory. David Thurman picked up the win for the Tigers. This weekend was special for the Oklahoma softball team. The Oklahoma softball complex was officially dedicated. To celebrate, the Sooners hosted Texas and Texas A&M. In the first game of a doubleheader, the Longhorns ended OU's 10-game winning streak. In the second game, the Sooners overcame their largest deficit of the year to hook the Horns 5-4. Against Texas A&M, the Sooners get 1 run in the 7th to edge the Aggies 1-0, and in the second game, the Aggies get 3 in the top of the 7th to win it 3-1. And several Sooners are heading off to bigger and better things in the National Football League. Steven Alexander was the first Sooner taken in the draft. Washington took him in the 2nd round. Baltimore took Martin Chase with the first pick of the 5th round. Also in the 5th round, Travion Smith was picked up by the Oakland Raiders. Offensive lineman Sammy Williams will join Chase in Baltimore. He was picked by the Ravens in the 6th round. The Norman High School soccer teams are trying to repeat as state champions. The road to another title started in early March.
The boys' defending champion Norman Tigers are ready to make a run at another title.
Yeah, but I think obviously our expectations, seeing the way we play lately, has to be to go all the way and win state.
The Tigers began that road to state in convincing fashion despite the division of Norman into 2 high schools. The Tigers had 6-0 victories over both Enid and Lawton. But their road would take a sharp curve when they played their crosstown rival Norman North for the first time. After going into the halftime with a scoreless tie, the Timberwolves came out of the locker room to prove a point. The Tigers gave up their first goal of the season and their first loss.
I think everybody, players in particular, were disappointed with the Norman North game. When you get clubbed 3-0, it's a disappointment.
Even though their early season loss to crosstown rival Norman North was disappointing, it didn't seem to affect the Tigers in their following games.
But Thursday night against Westmore, they played exceptionally well and did the right things. And then whoever organized this tournament, I think I had to shoot them. Saturday morning, we played like we were back home watching the cartoons. But
that tournament was the Big Cat Classic. Westmore forced Norman into overtime before the Tigers could put away the Jaguars 3-1. And Saturday morning in the second game of the tournament, Norman handed Choctaw a 1-0 shutout. Later that night, the Tigers came out live to beat Mustang and claim the championship. The Choctaw game would be the beginning of 6 straight shutouts for the Tigers.
Playing the best we've ever played. Our defense is unstoppable right now. If our defense keeps playing like we are, then I think we'll do fine. We can play with anybody.
As the season winds down, Tiger goalkeeper Jason Skill is getting closer to breaking the record for all-time shutouts at Norman. However, he gives much of the credit to his defense.
I want to say that personal records aren't a big deal, but I have to say they are. I'm pretty excited. The last couple weeks I've been counting down. I've been plotting out how many it'll take for me to get the record and what I have to do here and there. I'd actually have to dedicate the record to the defense because they played awesome this year.
Plans for breaking that record would take a detour, though, when Edmond Santa Fe came to town. Santa Fe jumped on the board first, but Patrick Byers scored 2, and the Tigers improved to 9-1-1 on the season. The three-time defending state champion girls team started out just as hot as the boys. After trailing early to Enid, the Tigers scored 6 straight goals for a 6-1 victory. Then in their home opener, the Tigers mercy ruled the Lawton Wolverines. Senior Heather Martinelli scored 4 goals in the rout. The following game with Norman North would be a different story than the boys' game with Norman North. Heather Martinelli's 7th goal of the young season would put the Tigers up 2 going into halftime. And Ann Ramey would score her first of many goals on the year to put the Tigers up 3-0.
Erin Young just went down the line and she gave a great ball, and Kim Brown just kind of tapped it, and I was, just running, and I happened to be at the right place at the right time, and I just stuck it in.
The Tigers put 4 goals on the scoreboard against the Timberwolves, showing no signs that the split has affected them.
We kind of didn't really know what to expect because we haven't played North ever, and so they have a lot of really great players, and so I kind of thought it was going to be a toss-up, and we just came out on top this time.
Our team was just really pumped, and we played really well, and each player really made an individual effort and a team effort to score 4 goals. It was a really good game.
The Tigers improved to 3-0 on the season and would play Westmore next. Norman would get goals from Ann Ramey, Mariana Blanco, and Kim Brown in a 3-0 defeat of the Jaguars. The Tigers then mercy ruled Midwest City 10-0 and beat Edmond Memorial 4-0 to improve to 6-0. The Edmond North Huskies would be the second team from that city to try and tame the Tigers, but they would meet the same fate as all the others who crossed Norman's road to the playoffs. Senior Heather Martinelli increased her team-leading goal total to 11 with 2 goals on the afternoon. Ann Ramey was unstoppable. The Parade Magazine All-American, Gatorade Circle of Champions State Player of the Year, and 4-year starter with the Tigers would also put 2 balls in the back of the net. Junior Kim Brown and senior Amanda Single would also score for the Tigers in the 6-0 shutout of the Huskies. The team improved to 7-0 and more impressively hadn't given up a goal since the opener against Enid. But that streak of shutouts would end against the pesky Yukon Millers.
Yes, UConn's a really good high school team, and they have some really good players, and so you never know.
After shutting out Edmond North 6-0, the Tiger girls found themselves in a fight with the Yukon Millers. That was until Ann Ramey took control of the game.
I was just lucky to, my teammates gave me just great balls. All I had to do was just, kick it in. And that's, the job of the forwards, and it's nothing special. It's nothing special.
The Tigers squeaked out a 3-2 win, giving up more goals in the single game than they had all season. Norman got back on track against Edmond Santa Fe. Norman improved to 9-0 on the season with the 9-0 win. The boys and girls continue their road to the playoffs Tuesday night at Dale City.
That's a lot of soccer, Andy.
It was. Glad I could provide it.
Thanks a lot. Thanks, Andy. Coming up next on Norman Today.
Survivors of the Oklahoma City bombing gathered yesterday on the 3rd anniversary of the blast.
Stay with us.
My son Daku was riding a motorcycle when he was struck by a car. I had spoken to him previously about donating his organs, and it made it so much easier for me to make the decision. I knew that this is something that he wanted. I didn't have to feel guilty about making the decision, doing something that he may not have wanted. Every day I tell people, talk it over. You must let people know what you want.
Job that really matters. Oh, the future starts here. It's waiting right here. It's waiting for you. Hold your head up with pride. Let the world open wide.
The United States Coast Guard. Jobs that matter.
Jobs that matter.
Welcome back to Norman Today. I'm Valerie Perrin.
And I'm Zane Watson. Survivors gathered yesterday at the site of the Oklahoma City bombing 3 years after the blast that killed 168 people. The names of the victims were read, and country singer Randy Travis sang Amazing Grace. Hundreds of people rang small bells after 168 seconds of silence. They also placed flowers and mementos on the grass-covered site where Alfred P. Murrow Federal Building once stood. Linda McCartney fought for animal rights, she touted a vegetarian lifestyle, and she stood beside her husband, ex-Beatle Sir Paul McCartney, for 3 decades. The couple's publicist confirmed yesterday she died from cancer Friday in Santa Barbara, California. Her husband and 3 children were at her side. American-born Linda Eastman was an acclaimed photographer when she married McCartney in 1969. The couple founded the music group Wings in the early 70s. Linda McCartney was 56.
The jailhouse suicide of murder suspect Aaron Needle will not affect his efforts to get Needle's co-defendant Samuel Scheinbein tried for murder in Maryland. Scheinbein fled to Israel shortly after he and Needle murdered and dismembered Alfredo Tello Jr. last September. Needle is said to have been a disturbed young man, and before his suicide he showed bizarre behaviors in his jail cell. Scheinbein has had no comment on Needle's death, and efforts are still being made to extradite him from Israel. Despite extensive excavation, UN arms experts have not yet accounted for all the warheads. UN inspections were launched in 1991 to oversee the destruction of Iraq's biological, chemical, and nuclear weapons, as well as long-range missiles. The UN Security Council has said it will not lift punishing trade sanctions imposed after Iraq's 1990 invasion of Kuwait. A month's work by UN inspectors in search of the warheads ended March 12th. Some of the searches involved sophisticated metal detectors.
And coming up in our final segment of Norman Today,
we'll give you some tips on how to find a good weight loss program.
Stay with us.
Last year, over 1 million children came face to face with child abuse. But this year, there's a program that can help stop the abuse before it starts. A program that reaches out to new parents, that teaches them how to cope with the stresses that lead to abuse. But we need your help where you live, because without it, many of the children born today will become victims of abuse tomorrow. Call 1-800-CHILDREN. The more you help, the less they hurt.
It is a test, not just of strength, but of the power of the mind. And if you complete the journey, you will be changed forever. The few, the proud, the Marines.
Morning, Fred. Morning, George. Good morning, Mrs. Applewhite. Lyle.
Good morning, George.
Forgetting things?
Good morning.
Morning, George. Remember this. Forgetfulness may not be what you think.
Cool out, isn't it?
Why, yes, it is.
Find out more. For a free booklet, call 1-800-438-4380.
That is just not cool.
If you're thinking about fitting into a bathing suit this season, you may be wondering which weight loss program works best.
There are some tips to follow when trying to find a good program.
First, be aware of ridiculous claims. You'd be surprised at how ridiculous some of them are. One product claims if you wear their earring, you will lose weight.
A good rule of thumb.
A good rule of thumb, if a program says you'll lose weight,
safely with
leave it.
Tip number 2, ask to see long-term weight loss data. Find out if people in the program lost the weight and kept it off for at least a year.
And finally, the last tip, choose a diet you can stick with for a lifetime. Severely low-calorie diets may work in the short term, but are hard to stay with forever.
If you have a pool in your backyard, you don't have to worry what you look like in a bathing suit.
Exactly. Well, thanks for joining us. Hope to see you again tomorrow.
Bye.
Bye.